Want a big one down here. I'm a bit nervous.
Darts are really hard to get out, and now it's time for a burrito.
Won't include holes anymore. It looks very strange. Hello, I'm Claudia and I document my projects here on YouTube, and today I'm gonna make a basic white shirt that isn't that basic.
You're basic.
And this is part of my sewing a Japanese inspired outfit. So let's start with that one. I have purchased in Japan this sewing book, and I'm going to use this pattern as my base to then change into something interesting. And this is actually the one I'm wearing. I think it fits very nicely. It isn't too snug, which I don't like. However, the arms are a bit short. When I do that, they open on the little snaps I have on the calves. And I don't want that, so I'm going to elongate the sleeves a little bit. And what do I have to tell you more? Oh yes, how I'm going to make it not so basic. I mentioned in my previous video the pattern magic books, and I'm gonna use those again this time. And I browsed through them and saw different possibilities and ultimately landed on this one. You might remember in the skirt I did in my series, here is the video, I already included circles in there, but there I used the circles to shape the skirt, and now there is a different approach. I want the circles but not to shape the garment, so I have to make the pattern accordingly, and for that I'm going to use the book. I have my materials here. I have a friend who quit her flight attendant job, and I have now like 10 of these cute little white blouses with a good cotton fabric, and I'm going to use those to use the fabric for my blouse. So I already threaded my machines with white thread, the overlocker and the sewing machine. So let's start with preparing the pattern, and I'm talking you through it. I had to change outfits so I can show you what I thought about placing the circles. I think I want one here, a small one. Want a big one down here, about here. Yeah, that seems good. And down here, and down here I want a big one as well. Now I can start changing the pattern. Yeah, that's gonna be fun, hopefully. I don't know yet. I'm a bit nervous if I can do it, but also optimistic.
Let's start with the easy part. I'm copying my sleeve pattern here and elongating it by 3 centimeters. I just choose a line where I make a perpendicular line in the pattern, elongate it there by 3 centimeters, and then connect the line on the side again, and that's it. Next, I take the rest of my patterns and copy them on sturdier paper, so it is a bit easier to make the alterations because there's no flimsy paper all around. And then I take my blouse and see how large the diameter of these circles are and put them on the pattern accordingly.
I have here one of my patterns on the front where the circle is on the side, and I want to open it on 6 points. And for that I divide the circumference through 6 and I get 5.75 centimeters. Now I can take my, whatever this is called, and measure 5.75. Now that I have my 6 points, I draw a line perpendicular to the circle. Next step is to decide where I want the opening to be, because there needs to be an opening, because I'm gonna do that, and I decide this short line is the opening, so I'm cutting that open. And now it is important, I have here seam allowance all the way around, but here and in the circle not, so I'm taking a red stabilo whatever and write down no seam allowance. So that I don't forget when I cut it out again. And the next step is to start opening it up. For that, I'm going to cut that open all the way through. I have my Scotch tape and also leftover paper. Gonna tape that down. And then it is important, you see here, there is a line there where the seam allowance is. Now on your pattern, if you have seam allowance, if you don't have seam allowance, it doesn't matter, but if you have seam allowance in your pattern, it's important that the opening starts not at the point where the seam allowance is here, where it ends, the pattern ends here, but where the seam allowance meet. So I'm going to open it up like that. Here. Let's measure here. I'm opening it up 6 centimeters. And with that we have our first opening. Let's go to the next one. Just a little break from today's sponsor, Dachs. He thinks if you like what you see, you should subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Now have fun with the rest of the video. That's how our pattern looks now. It looks very strange, but trust me, it's gonna work. Or I trust myself, it's gonna work. And now I am starting to fill it in with the fabric.
I'm opening up the blouses for fabric, and they have a lot of darts which I have to open too. And sometimes I was a bit impatient and made holes into the blouse, which is a shame. I'm trying to recycle fabric and damaging it in the process. But well, that's it. And I also had to work around stains sometimes, but there were only a few. And I'm ironing also all the pieces I get, and it was washed so many times. The darts are really hard to get out, and I don't mind. I think I like this when you look at the garment and you see that there are some remnants, and maybe someone asks and you can explain why, and I think that's really cool.
Let's create our fabric. I have here pieces of the blouses. That's from the front and that's from the back. Let's start with a big one from the back. this. And now I want to make here the cut. Let's see. Here I have to remember to add seam allowance. Cut this away. And it is important that this is straight. That's why, let's see. Yep. And like that. Oh, I have an idea. Let's combine these two first. Oh, that's straight. Now that I combine these, I can add line these straight again. Gonna serge that, also iron that, and it's important that you iron all the seam allowance in the same directions. That's gonna be important when we do the hole.
I didn't really explain why this is important. When the circle is finished and you have a channel and you want to feed through some ribbon, it's very helpful when all the seam allowance is in the same direction, because you can get stuck otherwise. The next step is to finish everything and then cutting it out, and I'm marking everything and also mark the seam allowance, which isn't there already, within the circle and where I join the circle, which I'm doing now. To finish this pattern piece, I'm creating a channel around the opening of the circle by folding inside the fabric and sewing it down. And to do that, I can stretch it a bit, and that worked out very nicely. Look how it turned out, so cool, with this big hole. And I'm going to put the ribbon in now to see the final pattern piece. I'm not finished. I have done my pattern pieces with the holes, but now I have to cut out all the other pattern pieces, the cuffs, the collar, the sleeves, and assemble fabric pieces to do that. And then it happened, of course, I made 2 right sleeves instead of 1 right and 1 left sleeve. But the good thing is I just have to open the seams and sew them from the other side, and then I have a left sleeve. And with that I worked around my mistake, and it's so normal to make mistakes. I was wondering when the first mistake was going to happen in this one. I think I never made a project without any mistake. I would be surprised if I did. Now all the pattern pieces are prepared. I start sewing the blouse by adding the yoke to the back pattern. For that I sandwich the back pattern into the yoke and sew it shut. Before I can close my shoulder seam, I prepared my front pieces with interfacing, so later it is easier to sew the buttonholes and also the button on, because it is quite a lightweight fabric and interfacing helps with that. And now it's time for a burrito, not the kind you eat, but the kind where all the seams are nicely tucked away. For that I'm rolling up my pattern pieces and sandwich them in burrito method within the yoke. Then you close the shoulder seams and turn everything inside out after you sewed it, and there you have a beautiful made yoke. Color time. I created a template to iron around the corners. Then I stitched the color, made all the little snips so the curves will lie flat, ironed that, and then attached it to the shirt, which was a bit, let's say, not so straightforward as I liked it. I'm not a perfectionist, so I'm happy how it turned out. Even though it's not perfect, that's fine. It is a shirt for me and the quality is good enough. Now that the collar is inside, I'm closing the side seams and then preparing the sleeves by attaching the cuffs and closing the side seams of those as well, and attach the sleeves, and I'm done.
Ta-da! I really love how this turned out. I love the holes in them. I love that the shape is still the same. I love that it is a white shirt that goes with everything and it has the special thing within. Das gewisse Etwas. And I think it also works very nicely with the skirt I did in my last video. And if you don't want to miss out on my future videos, which probably won't include holes anymore, I think I've done that now. Please subscribe. If you liked what you saw, give me a thumbs up and see you next time. Bye!